Lawyers love to argue, and I suspect that doesn't surprise you, but it may surprise you that some lawyers also get physical. Like that time, a lawyer had it out for me and threw me against the wall. What would you do with your back literally up against the wall and a lawyer screaming in your face? I'll answer that and more in this episode. Do you think it's important that your counterpart on the case trust you? And for that matter, do you trust your counterpart? Why the heck are we talking about trust if this podcast is about successful case management and mediation of a personal injury accident case? We all know that clients inherently dislike each other, and they certainly don't trust each other. But haven't we all been guilty of exploiting this dislike and this distrust, especially if we believe it's going to help us? If the clients themselves were the bellwethers for how we approached our cases, then nothing would ever resolve. Suppose trust of opposing counsel was a helper and not a herder in a case. Occasionally, you will run into an attorney that does not feel the same way as you. That attorney will still see every case as a win and lose proposition rather than a win and win proposition. Mediation, on the other hand, sees things as a win and win proposition. But there are claims professionals who think they should never pay on a case, period, regardless of the seriousness of the injury or the clear liability on their client's part. Or on the opposite side of the coin, there are attorneys who never make a reasonable demand, who always are difficult to deal with, who never want to see the true value of their case. Or sometimes there's just mean-spirited people who lack trust in others and trust in themselves. For our purposes today, let's call them the combat veterans. The eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth type. The cantankerous, distrustful, just plain mean people. Would you ever want to work with someone like this? We know we can find ourselves in the same boat. I know that this is not how you carry yourself, but I also know that we all can have miserable moments. So how do you deal with the recalcitrant, distrustful adversary that refuses to work with you towards resolution? One way would be to totally shut down the relationship. Just prepare for trial. Put blinders on. Consciously decide, I'm not going to resolve this case, and I'm only going to do more work, make less money, have less time, speak to clients over and over again, make multiple wasted trips to court when nothing gets done, make voluminous motions that take hours and hours to work, to create, and then to argue, risk an appeal if there's an adverse decision, and generally just suffer stagnation on a case. But what if there was a better way? One that addresses all the problems associated with putting a case into suit. One that addresses the problem of dragging a case in your back for 3 to 5 years. What if there was a way that developed trust that counteracts every one of the things that I've talked to you about up to now? Trust that lessens your caseload. Trust that lessens the amount of time that you have to put into a case. Trust that creates more opportunities for you to resolve the case and less opportunities for you to constantly be speaking to your clients. Trust that creates no motion work. Trust that doesn't risk appeals. Trust that leads to mediations that resolve your case. When you develop trust, and that means killing your adversary softly, killing your adversary with kindness, you will reduce your caseload by resolving more cases. You will develop relationships and trust beyond this one case. You will conquer inertia and throttle up on the road to success. So what is trust exactly? It's interesting because if we play around with the word and just re-letter it a little bit, we can turn trust into strut. a literal support for your case. I propose that trust is the strut that will support your case. Now, a strut is defined as a structural component designed to resist compression forces. It's typically a bar, a rod, or a beam to provide support, stabilization, reinforcement to a structure. That's what trust is in a case. It's the same as a strut in architecture. Struts are used everywhere: aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering. But I'm also going to propose that a strut is used in personal injury cases to support the cases and to lead them to quicker and more efficient resolution. What am I saying? Let me be clear. Trust is just like a strut that is used in engineering. Only trust in a personal injury case will support that personal injury case towards a quicker resolution. And by the way, speaking of strutting, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Tony Mascolo, the reluctant mediator who failed to realize the toll that litigation work took on me. I'm a recovering personal injury litigator. I managed to escape alive from this beast of our business. I'm scarred, but alive, and I can't help but wonder how many of us who are in this business never were lucky enough to survive. This business takes a big toll on us. The toll it takes does not kill us softly. It can kill us hard and quickly. So let's dive in and see how trust, or strut, as we've relettered it, does this. We've turned TRUST into STRUT. Suppose I told you that one of the best ways to resolve your case quickly and efficiently through mediation is to strut. Strut your stuff. Be a peacock. Be the person that walks into the conference with a wide-brimmed 10-gallon hat. That's strutting. And many would think that this is counterintuitive to what mediation is all about. There is absolutely a place for strutting in mediation. There is a place to stick out. There is a place to put yourself forward in a meaningful way. This is important, actually, because you want to take control. Remember, we go back to being the captain of your own ship? Strutting is part of being the captain of your own ship. Some people think there's no place for strutting, but they would be wrong. Because strutting means you're using the supports that exist in your case, struts that you've most likely taken the time to develop to support your case, and you're showing them off. There are different ways to show things off. You can show things off in a kind and soft way rather than in the I will kill you with this way. The strut is what supports the framework of your case. It's what helps your case weather storms, stay standing upright, and yes, it can even help you deal with mean-spirited opponents who decide not only to argue with you, but to get physical with you. So the adjusters and lawyers should develop trust. The mediators and lawyers should develop trust. The mediators and adjusters should develop trust. The adjusters and the attorneys and their clients need to develop trust. This is why I developed what I call the relational mediation method for claims professionals and attorneys in personal injury cases. Trust is the support that every case and every relationship must have in order to resolve in a fair and just way. Broken relationships lead to broken cases. And we're not talking trials here. We're talking about the 95 to 98% of your cases that will resolve. Statistics show that 95 to 98% of your cases, depending on jurisdiction, will resolve prior to trial. Let me take a wild guess here. You would be happy if you were able to resolve 95 to 98% of your current caseload. That would be a situation where having less of something is really having more happy clients, more savings, more favorable impressions, more likes, more salary, more. So how do you do all of this? You need the support of a trust beam, a trust strut to make your case resolve. So let's take a deeper dive into the world of trust and see what really are the components of trust. And let's look at an example from my former life. When I was a much younger lawyer and still very naive, I worked on a case where the defense attorney was just absolutely impossible to deal with. I had never run across anyone like this before. He was just a cantankerous guy. Now, I've run into difficult people to work with before, but this guy was just downright nasty. I found out later that he had a history with the firm that I was working for. He and the founding partner of the firm that I was working for just did not get along. They had a bad history together. They were contemporaries, and they hated each other. And it manifested itself with every time this attorney met me in court. I never got a hello. I never got an extended hand. I'm sure he left me hanging with my hand out. Nothing. It was just pure argumentative actions from the moment we met to the moment we parted. And on top of that, he never was on time, always late. He never seemed prepared for what we needed to discuss to move the case forward. And because he was late, I was always one of the last ones left in the courthouse. And I still had a lot of other things to do besides that one case. Man, I remember trying everything I could, all my charm, but he just had no personal interest in me. I think he held it against me and saw it as weakness. Let me tell you a little background on the case. I inherited this case from another attorney. And if you remember in our past podcast, we talked about how you can inherit cases from other lawyers or other adjusters and how they're just too happy to give them to you and they're doing the happy dance when they do give it to you. And you just don't get the cream of the crop. That certainly was the case here. Eventually, I came to understand why this case had been handed down and down till eventually it came to me, the new guy on the totem pole. Eventually, we got to the point, though, where this case had to do depositions. They were court-ordered, and we go to the depositions, and the EBT went terrible. We were fighting the entire time. We were up and down seeing judges. In those days, you went to see the judges immediately. So here we are. We're now in a hallway. After all of this is going on for hours, this guy just ends up absolutely losing it. And the way he lost it was not by arguing more with me, but by actually and literally pushing me up against the wall. Boom. It hurt. I was shocked. It was a physical attack, and my gut reaction was to react back. I looked him straight in the eye and I told him, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. You just physically assaulted me over a deposition. I walked back in to the room. I put it on the record that the EBT was over, that he had attacked me physically, And I left it at that. I said the CBT is over, and I reserve my rights for all remedies that may be available to me. So why am I telling you this whole story? Because the rest of this story is about trust. And it was trust that showed me the way to resolve this case. I was not thinking revenge. I was thinking resolution. So as I sat on the train on my way back to the office, I started to think, how do I take this negative situation and make it into a positive? How do I make this help me resolve the case? I felt like I had something that I could use to help me resolve the case. I decided to make a call to the supervising partner in his firm. I discussed what happened. I told the partner that I was not interested in creating a problem for the firm or the attorney because, let's face it, this wouldn't look well to the Bar Association. It wouldn't look well to their client. I wasn't going to make a complaint, a grievance, or anything like that. My only goal was to resolve this case. I told him that I was not hurt, that I had put it on the record to protect myself and the record, and all I really wanted and needed for this case was to have someone who was reasonable to listen to me, to have a reasonable conversation, and to resolve the case at the right price. The attorney told me, okay, let me investigate it. Let me speak to the other attorney, and I will get back to you tomorrow. The next day, I get a call, not from the supervising partner, but from the attorney that had assaulted me. He apologized immediately, thanked me for not making more out of this than I could have, thanked me for not making a complaint to the Bar Association or even the police. He said it would never happen again. So, guess what? It didn't happen again. Now, I'm not going to tell you we become great friends. No, we didn't. But we were able to work together on more cases without a fight. We did resolve this case that caused this issue at the right price and in a fair and honest way. And along the way, we learned to trust each other. I had used trust as a tool to help me resolve this case. After that day, he was never late for court again. He would always say hello and goodbye. We trusted each other, and we settled many cases after that. In later episodes, we're going to consider all the letters of trust. Those letters are T for transparency, R for reliability, U for understanding, S for support, and T again for either truthfulness or trust. Tune in again for further episodes where we will talk about this and other matters that will help you manage your caseload. I am your host, Tony Mascolo, recovering personal injury litigator and now a mediator for the New York court system. I will help you manage a caseload and have a better, happier life, resolving cases through mediation. Together, we will learn methods to manage this beast of work and reduce caseloads, provide certainty of outcome, develop relationships that sustain continued resolution. And this will give you power over your life and in your relationships, both in and out of court. If you want to talk further, contact me at smarttomediate.com/book a call.